I love my job, but I hate talking to people like you. I love it right now because I said earlier on, you're the last person I'm talking to, so...
One of the greatest mysteries in music is where Freddie Mercury's ashes are. You are aware that Freddie's legion of admirers has been trying to track down his gravesite for decades? You know what? There's a good reason it's remained elusive. Not only does the most recent insider report reveal everything, but it also brings up questions nobody had thought to ask. Why is this secret being revealed now, after 34 years? The revelations aren't simply stunning, they're emotionally taxing too. Hold on for the ride of your life, because I'm about to reveal the most astounding piece of information ever. It was tragic, and to be honest, the world lost an incomparable treasure when Freddie Mercury passed away in 1991 from AIDS-related complications. There has never been anyone else like him in terms of his voice, charisma, and stage presence. However, he was exceedingly tight-lipped about his death and its aftermath. He had confided in just a small number of individuals about his condition, and once he died away, his funeral and all the arrangements were deliberately kept under wraps. That wasn't only an impression, it was a strategy. Crucial portion now. Freddie was cremated. There's evidence for it, therefore it's not just conjecture. His last resting place was Kensal Green Cemetery in West London, where his ashes lay for some time, more than a year in fact, until they were finally retrieved. Thus, the concept of a person opening a casket containing his remains, it is very illogical. There is no mausoleum to uncover. There is no casket lying in wait to be found. Of course, the stories are dramatic and contribute to the mystery and shock value culture on the internet, but they are also completely out of touch with reality. Fans from all around the globe have been visiting the site they thought was Freddie Mercury's last resting place for the past 34 years, leaving tributes such as flowers, letters, and tears. What if, however, we revealed that the tomb might not have been what it appeared to be? Fans, historians, and even Freddie's closest friends are wondering if this was ever intended, after the shocking revelation that has lately been made public. This enigma surrounding his burial is perplexing. You won't want to miss the revelation at the very end, so stay with us. Mary Austin is an important character in our story, so let's speak about her for a second. Freddie continued to refer to her as his common-law wife, long after their amorous relationship ended. Is their relationship strong, firm as rock? His whole being, including his cremated remains, was entrusted to her. Only she knows the precise location of his grave. I can assure you that Mary intends to keep her word. I vowed on his deathbed that I would never divulge the location of his ashes, she claimed. The burden of keeping such a secret for more than 30 years must have been immense, but I can tell you where they are. That's all I can say about it. With her, Freddie was forthright. He preferred that no one be informed. I want you to put me exactly where I want to go, he informed her. However, no one is to know this, since I would rather no one find out my whereabouts. That ought to be the end of it, but the internet is always up for a mystery, isn't it? All I want is to die peacefully. Mary spared no effort in fulfilling his request. She cared for the urn for over 2 years in his bedroom at Garden Lodge, his London residence. Okay, so there was that strange incident in 2013 when admirers discovered a memorial stone in Kensal Green. As Freddie's birth name, Farrokh Bulsara, was written in French and signed with a M, panic ensued. The question, is this it, arose. Could this be the key? In the blink of an eye, though, the plaque vanished. Oh no, there was no explanation, which led to further conjecture. Did it exist? An homage for fun? No one is aware. What about Mary? She maintained her customary silence. His true whereabouts are the subject of several conjectures. Following the lead of Jim Hutton, Freddie's late business partner, rumor has it that they are interred beneath a cherry tree at Garden Lodge. Zanzibar, the island where Freddie was born, is where some think they were dispersed. Another possibility is that he is in Montreux, Switzerland, near the shores of Lake Geneva, a location he held in high regard. A few people will even go so far as to say he is at Kensal Green. The worst part is that no one has ever been able to prove any of these hypotheses. To be completely honest, to some extent, that is lovely. All this hubbub over his tomb being opened is really missing the mark, since that's not what matters. Locating a specific location is not important. Realizing that Freddie did not wish to be located is key. It was his desire. What about Mary? With an admirable and touching degree of decorum, she has acknowledged that. He wanted no one to know his burial site, so that's what she stated once. And guess what? That vow has been upheld by her even after all these years. That goes beyond dedication. It's love. The tale of Mary Austin and Freddie Mercury is anything but ordinary, and that goes double for their relationship. You can't put your finger on it. It's just one of those uncommon, profound, soul-binding relationships. You know how it is when you meet someone that seems to put everything in perspective? For Freddie, that was Mary. Not only that, she was the protagonist of his life story. Freddie was 24 years old when he met Mary Austin, who was 19 years old. Both were full of life and ambition. Sure, it began as a romantic connection, but as time went on, it evolved into something that merged all of their identities: love, friendship, family, and more. In 1976, following Freddie's revelation that he was bisexual, an emotionally taxing occasion for both of them, they ended their love relationship. Their link didn't end, though. It only changed. Its nature changed, rather than dissolving. Their tale is very remarkable because of that. All my lovers asked me why they couldn't replace Mary, but it's simply impossible, Freddie remarked, and you felt it. He meant it when he said it. It was not just poetry. His claim that she was his common-law wife was literal. I mean, isn't it just the most basic kind of human connection? Even though he didn't want to, he couldn't fathom his existence without this person. Mary remained by his side, a constant, a rock, and a home base, even while he continued to date guys and live his truth. How crazy is that? Quite lovely, actually. Not that they were clinging to one another out of habit or nostalgia either. In every instance, they opted for one another. They continued to circle back, even when they were in different places or with other individuals. Spoiler alert, Freddie's words, "I'll love her till I take my last breath," were truly believed. At the moment of his passing, she was holding his hand. That pretty about sums it up, doesn't it? The story's impact grows from here on out. As Freddie's health deteriorated due to AIDS and the world drew near, he entrusted Mary with a mission that no one else had the courage to attempt. Nobody else, not even his parents or bandmates, but her. After he passed away, he begged her to scatter his ashes. On top of that, he wanted no one to know where he was laid to rest. He was so worried that his followers would try to track him out and maybe even unearth him, as had occurred to other renowned persons, that he refused to let anybody know, not even his parents. Is the thought of shouldering that burden too much for you? How trusting is that? A holy last vow of that kind. Not only did Mary agree, but she also delivered. And she accomplished it in a low-key manner, spared no care, and kept every aspect under wraps. Even after 2 years had passed since his passing, she had not yet dispersed his ashes. She stashed them in his bedroom and sat with her sorrow and promise there until she was ready to do something. Unbeknownst to anybody, she accomplished it at last. She skipped the driver's service. She kept quiet about it. The housekeepers were informed that she was actually going out for a facial. Clutching the urn in an unassuming bag, she quietly made her way out. Absence of pomp and circumstance. No words necessary, just love. Are you kidding me? That degree of commitment? The fact that she has never once cracked is even more astounding. The exact location of Freddie's grave remains a mystery even after all these years. Absolutely no idea. Mary? People have wondered. Some have suggested Switzerland, others his own garden, but no one has really said. She only offers a courteous smile but remains silent. I never betrayed Freddie in his lifetime, and I'll never betray him now. How striking, isn't that? The issue of confidentiality is moot now. It's about guarding a secret that only they two know. It should be mentioned that Freddie provided ample evidence to support such trust. Not only did he leave Mary his 28-room Kensington residence, but he also bequeathed half of his wealth, or £75 million. She got a 25% stake after his parents passed away. Yeah, that's very big. Unless they are your soulmate, you wouldn't just hand over that type of money. What about Mary? His ashes and the entire heritage of their link are still guarded by her in that house, where she remains as silent as ever. Her involvement in Freddie's life following his death was, of course, met with mixed reactions from some of his friends and family. Discord has been building, particularly among the surviving members of Queen, and rumors have circulated that she has cut ties with them. Who could blame her, though? She wasn't obligated to provide an explanation, and apartheid is a natural consequence of grieving. She did exactly what Freddie wanted and needed her to do, and she did it flawlessly. Thus, Mary is the one who is usually brought up whenever the subject of Freddie Mercury's last resting place and the mysteries surrounding it is discussed. No one else but her knows that secret. He has entrusted her with his last request. What she did illustrate time and time again was that their bond defied categorization, logic, and the constraints of space and time. It went beyond a simple romance. Their bond went beyond friendship. There was no comparison at all, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the majority of us. The combination of a legendary rock musician, a hidden tomb, 30 years of radio quiet, and an unexpected twist yields what? I can tell you the story. Although Freddie Mercury passed away in 1991, it appears that he had more to say to the world. Hold on tight, for this tale will transport you to a world of renown, intrigue, romance, and one of the greatest shocks in music history. Stay to the very end, because the revelation at the conclusion will make you gasp for air. One of those anecdotes that stays with you, particularly when you stop and think about all Freddie Mercury was facing, is the way he handled his final days. Picture this. You're one of the most famous musicians of all time, revered by millions and nearly worshipped by fans, yet you still choose to hide when it really mattered. Freddie did it precisely. Even though everyone was wondering what was wrong with Freddie in 1991 and his health was rapidly deteriorating, he chose to remain silent. This was not due to a lack of shame or concern. Rather, he wanted to safeguard something very personal: his serenity, his honor, and the legacy he would leave behind. Isn't it incredible that this incredibly outgoing and confident performer, who could hold the attention of an entire stadium with the flick of a wrist or the lifted eyebrow, could be so reserved and shy once the lights were off? However, that was Freddie. He was shielding not just himself, but also his loved ones, and the life he had painstakingly created away from the limelight. His secrecy was unwavering. Just 24 hours prior to his passing, he made a very intimate and straightforward public declaration. He made it clear that his privacy has always been a top priority, boasting about his not giving interviews. Isn't that vintage Freddie? Even in the end, he made sure he had control of his tale. Even though their connection went beyond romance, Freddie still considered Mary Austin the love of his life. Years later, Mary revealed one of Freddie's deepest desires. He preferred that no one be informed of his burial location. The guy who inspired countless people with his songs and spirit wished for his last resting place to remain undisclosed. And it wasn't only due to his reserved nature. The issue ran deeper. For good reason, he was worried that his devoted followers would go to extreme lengths to track him down. It seems severe, doesn't it? But being a legend can turn fan adoration into something terrifying in an instant. This had happened to other famous people before he knew. Fans flooded cemeteries with flowers and flash cameras, vandalizing graves and stealing tombstones. That was not what Freddie wanted. He yearned for unity. That vow was kept by Mary. Nobody has ever recovered his scattered remains. With her passing came the mystery. Although Freddie's physical form was deteriorating, his immortal soul persisted. Don't you think that's interesting? Near the end, he was visited by Elton John, one of his closest pals. And the picture he made is so moving that it does double duty as both a comfort and a pain reliever. Freddie lay in bed encircled by pill bottles and medicine, but also by Japanese art auction catalogs, which he continued to browse through, daydreaming about the next stunning work he could buy. He is not considering death in any way, according to Elton. He's still considering paintings. If that doesn't reveal Freddie's character, I don't know what does. Despite his physical limitations, his passion for art, life, and beauty remained unquenchable. Also, the era in which he lived must be remembered. Discussing mental health, orientation, or simply being honest wasn't as common in the early 1990s as it is now. There was a complete and utter shame around the condition of AIDS in those days. It caused a lot of people to lose all they owned, including their jobs, houses, respect, and dignity. Therefore, Freddie naturally did not want anybody to know his diagnosis. Who could blame him? He didn't make the announcement public until the day before he passed away, just for a moment. Even then, what he said wasn't really groundbreaking. Freddie nailed it with his serene, dignified performance. "It has come to my attention that I am HIV positive and am living with AIDS. All my friends and admirers throughout the globe will now know the truth, though. The issue of privacy wasn't the only one that prompted that choice. It centered on staying alive." His lifelong aide, Peter Freestone, said subsequently that Freddie had meticulously arranged the funeral and the timing of the announcement, among other details, because he was afraid the media would distort the story if he didn't. Tragically, he was also aware that the stigma associated with AIDS may persist after death. Isn't that tragic? Do you really want to live in constant fear that people would forget you because of the manner you passed away? And Freddie was aware of it. He knew it. And that's the reason he was so protective of everything. Thinking about it, Freddie's last decisions, like hiding his gravesite, waiting until the last minute to talk about his sickness, and surrounding himself with art instead of sadness, were all extremely personal ways of exercising power. In a world where public opinion had repeatedly nudged him, they were about control. Honor was at the heart of them. After giving so much with us, he wanted to save something for himself, and those were his words. Even after his death, his Kensington House Garden Lodge remained a holy place for his many admirers. A crowd formed. Wailing ensued. They decorated the walls with paintings, poetry, and flowers. Even now, you may see remnants of some of those memorials. He left an impression like that. Still, he preferred that no one pay such heed to his ashes. The last thing he wanted was for his burial to end up on a fan's wish list. He yearned for a tranquil ascent into space. Doesn't that have its own unique beauty? People frequently remark on Freddie Mercury's voice, style, charm, and the transcendent nature of his shows while discussing him. The fact that he left this world in such a subdued manner betrays a quiet power. After all, he was the kind of man who could make the biggest splash on stage. To be completely honest, that would have been the most Freddie-ish thing for him to do. Ultimately, his most recent request extended beyond mere confidentiality. Regarding confidentiality, that wasn't enough. The theme revolved around regaining his narrative during a period when illness threatened to dictate its course. It was about standing firm in the face of an unforgiving world. It revolved on love. Love for himself, love for Mary, and love for those who knew him best. His last message to the world may have been, "Remember me for the music, for the joy, for the fire. Not for the illness, not for the struggle, not for the grave." Perhaps it was a subtle way of saying that. Quietly lying in his bedroom at Garden Lodge, Freddie Mercury's ashes remained there for 2 entire years, 730 days to be precise, in the identical house he once filled with music, joy, and his renownedly exuberant personality. Do you think that's possible? Upon his death, the very room where he would wake up humming tunes or even put on one of his theatrical costumes for amusement now stood silently as a guardian of his memories. It was only a bedroom, no public shrine, glass case, velvet ropes, or anything else that really gets under your skin. His chamber. Why was it there for such a long time? And why was it there in the first place? It all comes down to one woman, Mary Austin. Freddie still referred to her as the love of my life, even after their romance ended. She was more than simply his buddy. She was his rock, his ride or die. The remains weren't immediately returned to their rightful owners after his cremation at Kensal Green Cemetery in 1991. Not at all. Mary came to retrieve them after they sat in the cremation for months. She returned to the house he had cherished, the one he had bequeathed to her in his will, and scattered his ashes in his bedroom. This was an extremely personal and touching decision. Now for the heartbreaking part. Mary was unable to enter that room. It was as if she had never set foot inside. Consider that, being unable to confront the one room that likely carried the most profound memories while residing in the very house where someone you cared deeply about resided and passed away. It's not light. Who could blame her when she described her subsequent admission as follows? I almost never went in the room because the memories of his final days, bedbound and frail, were too vivid and painful. There's no manual for dealing with bereavement, is there? Even if you want to keep going, sometimes all it takes is opening a door to restore your crumbling self-esteem. Plus, this wasn't like a temporary situation. Close friends and family of Mary's claim that she spent little quality time in that room for 5 years. After passing it on your way, perhaps stealing a quick glance from the hallway and experiencing that crushing sensation of melancholy all over again, it has been 5 years. What an impact that type of loss must have on a person. That's more than just missing someone. It's the type of pain that gets embedded in your bones. Mary nevertheless realized when the moment had come. Freddie had asked that his ashes not be publicly dispersed, and this was her last memory of his dying desire. The transformation of grave sites into shrines and the transformation of grieving into obsession were all things he had witnessed with other notable persons. Furthermore, that scared him. All he wanted was freedom, personal information. Plus, he tasked her with making sure that occurred. Consequently, she devised a strategy. Not a grand, spectacular scheme, not accompanied, absence of pomp and circumstance. It was only Mary on a quest that no one else could comprehend. A last invitation was extended to Freddie's parents to visit Garden Lodge by her. She allowed them to cry and pray without disclosing her impending actions. It was about keeping Freddie safe, not about keeping secrets to harm anyone. Perhaps she is also trying to shield her own heart from harm. Next, the clandestine assignment. Not even the employees were informed. Why? Reason being, staff gossip, as she put it. She was right. They won't be able to resist it. Can you fathom the consequences if word got out about her actions? Even before the ashes hit the ground, it would have made it into the tabloids. She kept her calm, pretended she was going for a facial, didn't use the normal driver, and carried the urn in a plain plastic bag instead of a beautiful casket. A seemingly regular woman performing an incredibly holy act on an ordinary day. This time she ventured out on her own. Nobody caught on. Nobody dared to inquire. It was completely unknown what she was transporting. Even his parents are in the dark about her whereabouts. A portion of the commitment was that. Subsequently, when questioned further, her response consisted just of the following enigmatic line: "He is not there. That's all. Missing follow-up. I don't understand." Indeed, that is the case. It's somewhat unusual, isn't it? The concept that someone so colossal, someone who could control 70,000 spectators at the touch of a finger, could have their gravesite concealed in such peaceful secrecy is incomprehensible. However, it's possible that he truly desired that. Nothing to celebrate, minimal ceremony, simply to relax. What about Mary? With all the remaining love and devotion in her heart, she fulfilled that vow. Just as she had shielded him from harm throughout his life, she did the same at his death. Instead of trying to make anything public out of his recollection, she kept her distance. It was as delicate and valuable as the object she clutched in her hand. Mary ensured that the true whereabouts of Freddie Mercury's resting place would remain a secret even after all these years. Although Freddie did not make his AIDS diagnosis public knowledge, he did so in 1987. He kept moving forward after discreetly informing a small group of trusted friends. How about you show up to work like a boss while carrying something that heavy? Even as far back as Queen's SNL performance in 1982, some fans think he may have shown early symptoms of his struggles. Regardless, he persisted. That is the quiet power that leaves an indelible impression on people. He did not publicly acknowledge his AIDS diagnosis until November 23, 1991, the day before he passed away. At some point, what kind of courage is that, like really? Taking charge of the story even when you're not feeling very strong. Freddie is that guy. His longtime assistant and close friend Peter Freestone said that Freddie decided to stop taking his medication when he thought it was time. He was not shoved, he was not pursued. Saying, "All right, I know what this is now," he carried himself with an air of subtle dignity. "I will make the most of the time I have left," he declared, and he did just that. Leaning in, he didn't merely fade away. He began contacting friends, engaging in heartfelt conversations, and resolving any outstanding issues. What gives? Who writes those? Oh my God, it gets even more lovely now because Freddie kept on making music. He continued to record in the Swiss studio as if it were his first day of work, despite the fact that his body was becoming weaker by the day. Music was his life. According to producer Dave Richards, Freddie was on the verge of death when he recorded the final vocals, and he had no idea he wouldn't live to hear the songs released. Did that, however, deter him? No. He basically told Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon to keep it coming as he glanced at them. "Please, more music. I simply long to sing. I mean, how do you even react to that? I'll record my parts now and then you guys can finish the rest." That's love, not merely professionalism, that is sincerity. Just so he could be alone in the studio and not have to worry about passers-by, they erected these enormous 6-foot walls. In spite of physically deteriorating in a cramped recording booth, this superstar persevered through every take. Even with a shot of vodka, he could barely make it through the vocals, but as soon as he opened his mouth, that voice, it's still enchanting. Despite his deteriorating health, how did he maintain such a commanding voice? Unless you have faith in miracles, or perhaps simply Freddie Mercury, it's hard to make sense of. Mother Love was the name of his final recorded song. But you know what? He left it unfinished. He started recording the vocals, but then abandoned them, saying, "I'll come back to it later." However, that later never came. May of 1991 was the last time we saw him at the studio. Do you sense how heavy that is? As if it's eerie, poetic indeed. It's Freddie, giving it his all until he could give no more. As if that weren't enough, Freddie had one more trick up his sleeve. This will be perfect for you. So before he passed away, he made arrangements for something incredibly thoughtful. He ensured that his closest friends and godchildren would receive a special gift from him each Christmas. Every year he instructed Fortnum and Mason in London to send these exquisite Christmas hampers. Thanks to his bequest, they are still being sent out decades after he passed away. When they're near death, who gives that any thought? Whoever said, "I want my friends to feel loved at Christmas, even if I'm not here," is clearly an absolute moron. Who is it? Freddie Mercury. And then there's the story of Elton John. It will hit you square in the stomach. In 1991, just a few weeks following Freddie's passing, Elton received this parcel on Christmas morning. Housed within a pillowcase was a stunning watercolor painting, accompanied by a small note autographed Melina, Freddie's playful drag name, and a pillow. Tears welled up in Elton's eyes. He was dying and he still thought of his friends. That sums up Freddie Mercury perfectly. Stunning, feisty, fierce, secretive, and brimming with love. So full of heart. People can argue all day about his greatest live performance or whether Bohemian Rhapsody is the best rock song ever. That's cool and all. But the real legacy? It's in these quiet, tender moments, in how he chose to die on his own terms, in how he refused to be remembered as a victim, in how he made sure the people he loved would always have a piece of him, especially around the holidays. Don't you think it's stunning? We have reached the final segment of this video. I appreciate you tuning in. Please subscribe, like, and comment if you found this video entertaining. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.